The Susan possession, a future governor's eyewitness, account a Rhodes scholar, witnesses what he cannot explain, then publishes his testimony knowing the world will judge him for it. Late autumn in Baton Rouge carries a particular quality of light, golden and diffuse, filtering through the live oaks that line the streets near the Louisiana State University campus. In 1990, a prayer group gathers in that soft southern evening, young people in their 20s, students and recent graduates, meeting to support a friend facing difficult news. Among them sits Bobby Jindal, a Brown University graduate, a Rhodes scholar, a pre-med student trained in the rigorous disciplines of science and analysis. He arrives at this gathering as a skeptic of the supernatural, a young man whose intellectual formation has taught him to seek natural explanations first and always. By the time he leaves, several hours later, that skepticism lies shattered at his feet like broken glass. The friend they gather to support goes by the name Susan in Jindal's later account. She struggles with an illness, the specifics of which remain undisclosed in the published testimony. Recent medical news has darkened her prognosis. The group convenes to pray for her healing, to offer spiritual support in a time of physical crisis. The gathering begins as such meetings typically do, with scripture reading, with spoken prayers, with the quiet communal rhythm of shared faith. Nothing in the opening moments suggests what approaches. The change, when it arrives, strikes with devastating suddenness. Susan's demeanor shifts. Her personality alters in ways those present find immediately and profoundly disturbing. The young woman they know, the friend they gathered to support, seems to recede. Something else surfaces in her place. She becomes hostile toward the Christian content of the prayers being offered. Her objections manifest not as the reasonable doubts of a questioning mind, but as visceral, aggressive rejection. The voice speaking through her lips carries tones and qualities those present do not recognize as belonging to Susan herself. Jindal watches this transformation with the trained eye of a future physician. He looks first for medical explanations. Seizure activity presents possibilities. Psychological crisis under medical stress offers another framework. He inventories the symptoms, attempting to fit what he observes into the diagnostic categories his education has provided. But the episode resists categorization. Susan's movements become erratic, requiring physical intervention to prevent self-harm. Multiple members of the group move to restrain her, not with force, but with the steady pressure necessary to keep her safe from her own actions. The atmosphere in the room shifts in ways Jindal later struggles to articulate. He describes a heaviness, an oppressive quality to the air itself that defies comfortable explanation. Those present feel it simultaneously, this change in the environment that accompanies the change in Susan. The prayer group responds instinctively. They have no formal training in deliverance ministry, no ecclesiastical authorization, no prescribed ritual to follow. They possess only their faith and their conviction that persistent prayer represents their sole available tool. They pray continuously, invoking the name of Christ, speaking scripture aloud, maintaining verbal and spiritual pressure against whatever force manifests before them. Hours pass. The episode continues with an endurance that exhausts everyone present. Jindal maintains his analytical posture even as his certainty erodes. He watches for patterns, for explanations, for any framework that might contain what unfolds before him. Then comes the element he finds most resistant to naturalistic interpretation, the detail that decades later remains the most compelling aspect of his published testimony. The entity speaking through Susan demonstrates knowledge it should not possess. It addresses individuals in the room by name. It references private struggles, personal matters, intimate details of their lives that Susan has no way of knowing. Jindal, methodical even in crisis, begins to verify these claims afterward. He speaks quietly with those who were addressed, asking whether the information revealed was accurate. Person after person confirms that yes, the entity spoke true facts about their private lives, facts they had shared with no one, certainly not with Susan. This element, more than the altered voice, more than the physical symptoms, more than the hostile personality, shakes Jindal's skepticism to its foundation. Medical training provides no framework for accurately revealed private information. Psychological crisis does not grant access to knowledge the afflicted person never possessed. He finds himself confronting a phenomenon his education insists cannot exist, witnessed by his own eyes with a clarity that permits no comfortable dismissal. The prayer group persists. They have no certainty they are doing the right thing, no manual to consult, no expert to call. They simply continue praying, hour after exhausting hour, speaking the name they believe holds power over all spiritual forces. They quote scripture, they sing hymns, they maintain both physical presence and spiritual pressure. The room feels like a battlefield, though no visible enemy presents itself for engagement. The resolution, when it finally arrives, manifests as suddenly as the onset. Susan's normal personality returns. The hostile entity, the altered voice, the aggressive resistance to prayer all vanish in a moment. Exhaustion replaces possession. Susan appears drained, physically spent, as though she has run a marathon she cannot remember entering. Those present recognize immediately that whatever occurred has ended. The oppressive atmosphere lifts. The room becomes simply a room again, filled with tired young people trying to process an experience none of them sought. In the days following, Susan displays no memory of the episode. She recalls the gathering beginning, recalls feeling unwell, then remembers nothing until she found herself surrounded by concerned friends, hours having passed unaccounted for in her consciousness. She recovers her strength. The symptoms do not return. The illness that prompted the original prayer gathering follows its own course, separate from the spiritual crisis that overtook the meeting meant to address it. Jindal spends the next 4 years considering whether to publish his account. He understands the professional risk. A young man building a career in public policy and politics does not enhance his credibility by claiming to have witnessed demonic possession. His advisors, had he consulted them, would certainly have counseled permanent silence. But in 1994, he publishes his testimony in the New Oxford Review, a respected Catholic intellectual journal known for serious theological discourse. He writes under his own name. He provides specific details while protecting Susan's identity. He describes both what he witnessed and his own internal journey from skepticism to reluctant conviction. The account receives exactly the response Jindal anticipated. Some readers find it compelling testimony from a credible witness. Others view it as disqualifying evidence that a promising young intellectual has abandoned rational thought. As Jindal's political career advances, from Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals to Member of Congress to Governor of Louisiana, the Susan possession account follows him. Opponents reference it as evidence of extremism. Journalists question him about it. Political cartoonists mock it. Through all this scrutiny, Jindal never retracts the account, never softens its claims, never suggests he misinterpreted what occurred. The Susan case occupies unusual territory in the landscape of modern possession accounts. Unlike medieval testimony filtered through centuries of translation and theological interpretation, unlike accounts from cultures whose epistemological frameworks differ fundamentally from contemporary Western thought, this testimony comes from a man trained in the rigorous disciplines of modern science and analytical reasoning. Jindal's credentials remain beyond serious dispute. His intellectual capabilities require no defense. He writes with precision and careful limitation, acknowledging what he cannot explain while standing firm on what he witnessed. Whether the episode represents genuine demonic possession or severe psychological crisis, operating through mechanisms medical science does not yet fully understand remains, as with all such cases, a matter of interpretation colored by prior commitment to various metaphysical frameworks. What cannot be disputed is that Bobby Jindal, a Rhodes Scholar and future governor, witnessed something in that Baton Rouge prayer gathering that convinced him, despite his skepticism and despite the professional cost, that he had encountered a reality his education insisted did not exist. The case challenges comfortable categories. It presents testimony from a source whose credibility on other matters goes largely unquestioned, describing events that many consider impossible. It offers specific details susceptible to investigation while protecting the identity of the primary subject. It stands in the published record, signed by its author, available for scrutiny by anyone who cares to examine it. The Susan possession remains what it has always been: compelling testimony about an extraordinary claim, offered by a witness whose intellectual honesty, whatever one thinks of his conclusions, seems difficult to impugn. If you found this case compelling, subscribe to Vanishing Roads for more documented paranormal investigations from around the world. This story was created with AI assistance based on documented case files. All events reference real investigations and reported incidents.